Tattoo artists of Reddit, what is your most are you sure tattoo you've been asked to do have done? I actually refused to do this one. An 18-year-old girl came in wanting her boyfriend's name on her lower back. She had never met him, she was his prison pen pal for a month, and he was being released in a couple weeks and she wanted to get it to surprise him. No judgments on ex-cons or 18-year-old girls, but I got the impression the relationship wasn't going to last. That's what Sharpie is for. An artist at the local tattoo parlor I go to tattooed a guy's ballsack all orange with an scary face on it. The guy referred to it as a sack-o'-lantern. I've told this story before, but why not? Guy comes in with girlfriend, want each other's names. I protest, they insist. We know they'll get it elsewhere and I'm in a walk-in shop at the time, so I say frick it, let's go. Gets it across his stomach in Old English. The moment we're done she yells some like, next time you'll think twice before fricking some skanky butt be behind my back, and runs away. It was awkward to ask for the money. That is some of the best revenge I've ever heard. A guy came in and got his wife's name covered up with a portrait of his new girlfriend. My co-worker used part of her shirt in the picture to cover up the name. Then 2 months later he turned his now ex-girlfriend's portrait into a demon. I started working at another shop and in came in the same guy with a third girl and they were getting matching tattoos on their hands. When I walked to the front and saw him, he totally pretended he didn't know me. Third time lucky. Dude came in and asked me to tattoo a portrait of his girlfriend, only the portrait was a duck face Snapchat selfie. I jokingly suggested adding her holding the phone, taking the selfie, but he thought it was a great idea. They've only been dating 6 months and he didn't tell her he was going to get it. He came back a month later to add her name above it. Should have added her Snapchat username. What a pleb. A friend of mine had the anorexia symbol tattooed on her neck. I know it's supposed to be a symbol of recovery. I think it's hard to say with all the pro-ana stuff, but now when she looks in the mirror all it does is remind her of her disorder and how horrible it makes her feel. You should recommend getting a cover-up tattoo if it makes her feel that bad. My ex-tattooist tried to convince me to get a broken condom with the word whoops above it. Obviously I declined. He ended up tattooing it on his own upper arm with his son's birth date below. I notice that they're now your ex-tattooist. As someone who's been told by their parents that they were a mistake, I hope this dude never sees his kid, and the kid has no idea who he is. My artist told me a story about a guy who was balding and wanted his bald spot tattooed over in black. My artist colored the bald spot in with a Sharpie and told the guy to come back after he'd showed it to his wife. The guy didn't come back. One of the artists at a shop here has the word hair tattooed in his bald spot. Much better idea. Was in booking a tattoo one day and a woman came in to buy her soon to be 16-year daughter a tattoo. Owner and tattooist says, sure we can sort something out. What is she wanting? Mother says she wants to get the Playboy bunny on the inside of her wrist. Artist refused and said, I don't want to be responsible for something so cliche and visible on such a young girl. There was an argument, but the woman leaves yelling she is going elsewhere where her money is good enough. He had strong views on neck, face and hand tattoos. Didn't stop him from doing a fast food character orgy on a guy's back though. Asked my artist, 25 plus years experience this during my last piece. His most notable was a guy who wanted a solid bright blue Speedo tattooed on over every square inch that a Speedo would cover. Said it was super awkward as it was one of his first tattoos, but he made good money off of it. Nothing has really fazed him since. Definitely had many of these. One really great penis related one recently. I work at Vic Market Tattoo in Melbourne. If you know the area, you'd know it's one of the older Melbourne tattoo shops. With that history comes a lot of older customers who ramble on about their experience of getting tattooed here over 20 years ago, which is why they inevitably come back. This older gent, easily in his 80s, comes to the front desk and points me out from way down the back of the shop. I want to talk to that guy. Confused, I meander up to the front to be met with a blush of embarrassment. He stumbles into his request. Now I'm not here to offend you or to make light of the wonderful work you do, but I do have a strange ask for you, he states. Here's where it gets weird. and I really feel like he could have led with sentence better than so. I was watching this young chap take a pee the other day, and he had just the most beautiful bee tattooed on the head of his penis. And I wanted to request to have the exact same bee tattooed on my penis. Slightly taken aback and slightly amused, I tell him that we can definitely do that, but that there are extra costs involved. Once I told him the price, he almost fell over, didn't respond and mumbled his way out of the shop. Never will I forget I was just watching this young chap take a pee. I tattooed frick on a woman's hip. She still loves it, but it makes me really uncomfortable when I think about her at the beach. I also had a friend want me to tattoo his girlfriend's name in Old English on his arm. I said no girlfriends. He was mad, because I was his friend and should do it. I said that's exactly why I wouldn't do it. If they don't last, I'm still his friend. It's incredibly hard to tell someone you won't do their tattoo, because their relationship might not last. Newsflash, he got our competitor to do the tattoo. Breaking news, they aren't together anymore. Another guy, when I first started out, wanted to get the Nazi hunter image. It's a cartoon guy clubbing a swastika. Even though it's an anti-racism image, he still would have looked like he had a giant swastika on his chest from 10 feet away and would spend the rest of his life explaining it. I decided to not do the tattoo. Guy came into the shop I work at wanting a cover-up of a previous regrettable tattoo. Pretty normal until he casually mentioned it's on his dong, and it's a red rocket. None of the dudes in the shop wanted to cover it up or even see it. Only person who stepped up was one of the female artists. She was like, I don't think I have a dong tattoo for my portfolio, so frick it, let's cover it up. The only possible way to cover it up was the add so much black work, so she freehand drew a tuxedo onto his schlong. Dude ended up with a dapper dong and he was happy with it. Weirdest day at work ever. I know this guy who tattooed a cutie mark on a guy's butt. A cutie mark is the marking the ponies have on their rear in the My Little Pony series. Last year, while doing a guest spot in Portugal, I had a guy come in while he was on holiday for his stag party. The guy wanted all the names of his friends tattooed on his butt cheeks. 13 names on each cheek, and 3 of his mates wanted to sign their own names. Sure buddy, sure ha 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 ha. A friend of mine got half in his right butt cheek with the names of all the people who gave him part of the money for the tattoo. It has about 20 names on it, and he's about to make a second one. I was a shop girl, so it was my job to get everything set up for the tattoos. I had a couple come in and want each other's names tattooed on them. Okay, no problem. At this shop we had a rule that anything involving words has to have the person sign a copy of the lettering to make sure everything is spelled correctly. So they write their names down, the artists draw up the lettering, and I give them the copies to double check spelling and sign off on it. The woman looks at the man's name. He wrote down his name to give to the artist, and says it's spelled wrong. We double check and that's how he spelled it, and he looks at it and says it's right, and they argue about this. I go back and look at how it is spelled on his, and sure enough it's spelled wrong. So he decides maybe it is spelled wrong, and the artist redraws it. On all his paperwork he had spelled his name wrong, the way he had written it for the artist. His name is pretty common. I think he just really didn't know how to spell his name. This was a couple probably in their late 20s, early 30s with a few kids together. We had this lovely exchange student come into the studio for about a year to get all sorts of piercings, and then the day finally came that he turned 18. So asked to sit down and chat with him about what he wanted. Now the way he asked me made me think that it was going to be this big elaborate design. He asked for a maths equation on his foot. He wanted 3 + 4 = 8. I cautiously asked that he knew that was the incorrect answer to the equation. His response was, oh yeah I know, I just think it'd make a funny tattoo. So yeah, that and another time I tattooed Scooby-Doo and Shaggy on a guy's bum cheeks. Have a photo if people are interested. A man came into the shop my husband works at on his 18th birthday and got a pentagram with a goat on the front of his throat. First tattoo in a very visible spot that is satanic. I don't know that kid, but I'm pretty sure he's regretting that decision. My husband refused to do this tattoo, but someone else in the shop did. On another note, my white trash biological father had "Let's Frick" tattooed on his hands when he laced his finger together. I never knew what they said when I was a kid. I finally realized at his funeral. I'm pretty sure he got it in prison. I've tattooed a guy's current wife's name on him. In the same session covered up his previous wife's name, and he also showed me another different previous wife's name he had on him. He didn't want to cover that one though. She must have not been that bad. We also had this couple come in all the time to get tattooed at the first shop I worked at. The guy would come in sometimes with a side girl and buy her tattoos, sometimes with his fiancée. After they were married, his fiancée wanted me to tattoo their wedding date on her wrist. I felt really weird trying to talk her out of it while not feeling like it was my place to tell her about this guy's behavior. I ended up doing it for her, and a year later she came in to get a red line tattooed through the date. TL. DR. Don't get names or dates unless they are your kids or dead. One of my dad's friends got a Gary Glitter tattoo back when he was popular, regretting that big portrait of a pedo on his arm now that he is 60. I can't find it now, but that reminds me of an article where a ton of Lost Prophets fans were freaking out over their tattoos when the Ian Watkins case came up, and a few local shops were offering free cover-ups or something like that. Friend wanted angel wings tattooed on her back and asked me to go since I was the only person she knew with tattoos. We walk into a pretty well-known tattoo shop in LA and she explains to the artist what she wants. As she explains, it gets even more elaborate with the wings starting to decay the farther down her back they went, and the artist shows us some pretty sweet wings he'd done before. He explains how it will be done. He'd do the outline first and after a few weeks she could come back and he'd start the detail work. Fast forward to 3 days later and she's topless lying on his chair bed and he's laying a stencil down. He asks her what other tattoos she has besides this one and she tells him that this will be her first one. Tattoo guy's face drops instantly and he starts saying how he's going to end up tattooing some of the most painful parts you could tattoo. The ribs mostly, and he asks if she can handle it. She says yes, and after a little more talking it happened. She cannot take the pain at all. She's crying and griping the cushion like she's about to die. Artist looks at me and his face reads like, is she really going to do this the entire time? After half an hour of tattooing with the occasional break, he says he can't deal with her screaming in the shop, so he stops. He had probably 10% of the outline done on the right wing. We leave with another appointment set so another person could help her with the tattoo and make it something smaller. I didn't go back, but she went with 2 female friends, and from what I heard was another 10 minutes of tattooing. She had a nice wave outline on her back. Going for an almost full back tattoo as her first tattoo, and a very cliche one. She's very lucky that the guy stopped, and she has a smaller one instead. I know a girl who tattooed a Wu-Tang W on her upper thigh. Only after she finished and looked in the mirror did she realize that she had done it so that she could see the W, but to everyone else it looks like an M. No regrets. My cousin did almost the same thing. He got his college logo tattooed on him on vacation. They did the logo backwards though. The artist claims he didn't know what the logo was. My cousin ended up just getting the logo tattooed again on the opposite side of him so it looked like it was going through him. I know someone who went in to get unscarred across his chest. He messed up the spelling and now has unscared tattooed across his chest. Is he doesn't afraid? My tattoo artist said some dude on crack came in asking for Lisa Simpson nude in a very sexual position. Told him to frick right off. During the Twilight craze, a mother brought in her 14-year-old to get vampire bites tattooed on her neck. Little holes with blood streaming down. We refused and they got pissy. A few years later I saw that girl in public. She must have gone to a crappy shop. She had 2 quarter-sized black dots with red strings all the way down her stupid neck. There was an 85-year-old woman who came into my tattoo artist shop, saying exactly, I want a fricking skull with fricking daggers and fire. My artist said frick yeah, and now she's an 85-year-old grandma with skull and daggers on her chest. Well, I was halfway though the tattoo when I had the are you sure or oh frick what have I done question go through my mind. Sad story. Guy on his 50s comes in wanting RIP, Melinda, Bethany, Jason, names changed. Not wanting to prod him about this sensitive tattoo, I got to work on his arm. After a few minutes he starts bawling his eyes out and shaking like crazy. I tried to comfort him and we got to talking about what happened to them. He says no, they're not dead, but I'm dead to them. What the fuck? He goes on to tell me he's just gotten out of rehab. Being a serious alcoholic, he used to beat and abuse his wife and children, and now they will never speak to them again. Pretty awful stuff to hear, so I'm not gonna go into detail. I tattoo a lot of stupid crap as well. Mostly boyfriends' names on 18-year-old girls. I do it because I talk them into getting small, tiny scripts somewhere hidden, so cover-ups or laser will be a great option in 3 months' time. Otherwise they'll go to white ink down the street and leave with Damien tattooed in Old English across their shoulders. Good call on doing it, but doing it do when they regret it. They have options. Not a tattoo artist, but I know someone who got her boyfriend's name tattooed on her neck. Her first and only tattoo. Later found out that same boyfriend molested her kid. So now she is walking around with her kid's molester's name on her neck. I don't know why she won't get it covered up. Whoa, I never have realized why people tattoo their partner's names on their body, because breakup or something like this is always possible. I've had 3 tattooists ask me, are you sure, all because of the same tattoo. Long story short, I lost a bet, ended up with a penis on a surfboard tattooed to my butt. Well, it turns out this is a great conversation starter and always gets a giggle from everyone who sees it. But the tattoo itself isn't great, so I'd like to tidy it up and make it look better, less scratchy. Every single tattooist I've asked has looked at me like I'm crazy. One went as far as to tell me a young woman should not have surfing genitalia on her butt. Post surfing dick butt. My buddy almost got a tattoo with a fist coming out of the ocean holding a stack of cash with change and sharks in the water. I'm trying to determine if there's a pun here I'm not getting. I tattoo eyebrows specifically. I've had a few clients come in and not know it's a tattoo. I had an older woman come in with her paid deposit and think that I was going to wax her eyebrows. She thought the deposit was the price of waxing eyebrows, $110. I felt terrible. I waxed her eyebrows, showed her how to fill them in with a pencil, and then refunded her deposit. Other than that, there's the usual freak out before starting, so I'll always ask, are you sure? I know a girl with a camel tattooed on one of her toes. It's only an outline and it's hidden most of the time, but I do wonder what motivated her to have a tattoo with the theme of camel toe. It was a big thing for a while. Heaps of people who think they're hilarious have one. Google image search camel toe tattoo and feel sad about her lack of originality. Not a tattoo artist, but the last time I got a tattoo I overheard the guy in the stall next to mine getting a tattoo of 3 spanners along his forearm. His tattoo artist was asking why spanners, like was he a mechanic or an engineer? Nope, dude was a chef. Maybe he wanted to be a mechanic, or it was a hobby or something? Nope, dude had always wanted to be a chef and loved his work. Then why the spanners? Turns out the dude just really likes spanners. Not a tattoo artist, but worked in prison and had to document the scars and tattoos on all new inmates coming into the prison. One guy had the words slippery when wet tatted around his butthole. I bet he was popular. I paid for a good friend of mine to get 37 tattooed underneath his belly button. The 4 characters were all composed of throbbing dongs. We love Clarks. I knew a tattoo artist. He said the weirdest thing he'd ever had to do was tattoo a banana peel onto some guy's dong. How, you may wonder. Does he incorporate a phallic-shaped fruit onto his rod? By demanding that the entire thing be tatted to look like the aging peels were being pulled back and the head was the actual fruit underneath. Whatever, my friend was being paid for that, it wasn't enough. I don't think it's a bad idea, but my buddy has a detailed ice cream cone with a cherry on his butt cheek. Mine is a pineapple with little arms, legs and sunglasses on him. Not a tattoo artist, but my friend's baby sister got Anthony's B in big gothic lettering on her lower back, tramp stamp, when she was 16. They broke up not long after. Tattoo artist was a piece of crap in my opinion. Dang, even for a 16-year-old girl that's a seriously stupid decision. No way the artist should have done it though. Not a tattoo artist, but my dad has a terrible tattoo on his arm of his and my mum's name. Years ago she told him to get something around it to make it look a little nicer and he came back with a dolphin on his pec. Looks in mirror, yep, that fixed it. A fully torqued penis in a Bloody Mary with the balls pressed against the glass. Also, a pan with a comically, disproportionately large ong, like 2/3 the size of its leg, on his inner forearm. The guy that does my tattoo said a drunk man came in and asked for an anatomically correct vagina on his butt cheek, with the words hot pee, cold beer above and below it. The shop doesn't usually allow drunk people, but it was slow, and my artist was like, why not? So he did it. When he was finished, the drunk man was so moved by it, he wanted another anatomically correct vagina, on the other cheek. Above that one, he wanted the words, it is what it is. He paid and tipped him, and my artist never saw him again. Hey, at least it wasn't on his forehead. My artist had a drunk guy come in that wanted a raw T-bone steak on one peck. Artist told him no, but guy insisted. So artist finally let him make an appointment to come back in a few days when he was sober and talk about it. Dude actually came back, and was still insistent that he wanted the steak. Artist told him okay, he'd put together some sample art and dude could come back the next day, still thinking this guy would change his mind and not show. But dude comes back the next, and he loves the art that artist shows him. Artist figures, why not, and he does it. I saw the photo of the finished tat in his portfolio. It's exactly as described. Just a big photorealistic raw T-bone steak, like what you'd buy in a grocery store. My two best friends got born to be wild in black with red flames right above their Johnsons. Now since they are hardly ever professional vag punishers, their pubes just mask it. But in college they would trim and use it as a party trick. It worked. Lots of girls wanted to see it, maybe like 3 or 4 BJs came from it with the aid of some distilled potato water. But I told the story goes of them getting it done. The two dudes, with cleanly shaven pubes, getting born to be wild above their dongs, and their artist says I recommend bad to the bone, it's funnier. The artist is right, LMAO. LPT, if you don't tattoo your wife's name onto your arm, don't tattoo your mistress's name on your arm. My uncle, they didn't appreciate each name beside the other. Now he has 2 nice black boxes on his arm. I have a very good friend who sported a large Chinese symbol tattoo on his calf for years. He thought it read prosperity. It wasn't until his father-in-law was hospitalized after suffering a massive heart attack and the attending doctor was Chinese that he found out what it really meant. The poor doctor couldn't understand why he had tattooed CM on his leg. And that's why you don't get a foreign language tattoo without checking it first. When I was getting tattooed, one of the artists at the shop was telling a story about how he tattooed the inside of a woman's vagina. She wanted leopard print and he did it. Granted, it faded away a couple days later, but he did it. My legs are now permanently glued together. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.